there's a lot packed into, a lot is packed into this first page.
Yeah.
And it's not all just, you know, nice nocturnal music. Oh, isn't it very peaceful tonight? And it's not just that. It's there's something very like painstaking melodies here, and the depth of the expression. Whenever you're going, whenever you have a crescendo, and it's like the same note again and again, and it kind of increases each time in intensity as well. And then in these long flourishes. Sometimes these long flourishes, they come out as beautiful kind of crystalline kind of figures, and then other times they come out as you know, these like mini explosions, like yeah da 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 dum bum 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 bum, and then sometimes it's sort of more wandering. So if you get these two things defined in terms of the direction, that's exactly what you need to kind of characterize the whole thing. Yeah. So then we're not really just talking about making everything nice and in balance and everything in place in terms of layering, although that's a big part of what you have to work on. We're also discussing like when you surge forward, and surge is really the word. When you surge upwards in a phrase, it gives it that kind of gasp, like, you know, like the wow kind of feeling, the one that really speaks. So you're speaking in terms of something that's very tranquil and very, very deep and very clear and very soaring, and then you're also speaking in a kind of where necessary, in a kind of powerful way, okay? Like, so some parts, even in this first page, are kind of like powerful at the top. Anytime you have the appassionato phrases, they kind of peak at the very, very top of the piano, and that's a very unusual place to be in Opus 9, around the time that Chopin wrote this. It's a very unusual place to leap to, like all the way down from here, the middle of the piano, all the way up to the very top register. Yeah. And that's a very unique thing, like an expressive device. You know, when you have like a smaller leap, like say of a sixth, it's already quite expressive, but then if you add a few octaves onto that, then it's going to be like, it's like almost, you have to reach out and grab that top note. Yeah. Can we try, I want to hear from here again. And each one of these, make it a little bit more deep, so you have, that's all arriving at this one. Keep it speaking. Keep going. More strong. This needs to be way more animated. It needs to be way more impassioned, like appassionata. Needs to be like those. Okay, I know it's dangerous, like to go. Like that note is always like, oh, am I going to land on it or am I not going to? Yeah. So you have to work out a way of mentally thinking about the bottom note as your foundation, and the top note is just part of it. So then you go bottom, bottom. It's easier to do that than to go boom. Okay, let's hope for the best. Yeah. So let's go. Let's just isolate these 3 times. Bum, bum, dum, 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 and then bum, 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 and then the last one as well. Let's just do 3 out of context, and each one I want to hear like a kind of surge of energy. Let's try. Even if it's the wrong notes, it's the right idea. So if it's the wrong notes and the right idea, at least you're halfway there. But each one of these, do you see what I mean? Each one of them is a stepping stone to the next one. So the first one needs to be appassionato, and it needs to be really like it's the first one, but then the second one even more. It's even stronger, even more, and then the last one is with force. So the last one is almost like a kind of like a scream of energy. So it's like 3 steps towards the last one. Mm-hmm. And then immediately, once you're done with that last one, this one kind of emphasizes the each note part. So it's dun, dun, bum 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 bum. This really unusual note changes the character again, and it brings it back to this like kind of the calmness that we had at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so you might say that this piece is a little bit crazy in some ways, that you have to pack all of this stuff into such a short space of time. But you have to work out each one, and you have to actually give each one a voice, so that you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's only a certain amount of like balance exercises that you can do, but your ear has to guide you, and your ear, if it's pinned with great attention on all of the characters, then you're going to be doing okay in this. Okay? It's yum dum 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 dum. You know, it's really stubborn and really insistent.
Yeah.
It's not that yum. Oh, I have threes against twos. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's not something you should be concerned about. You should be concerned about the you know, it's like someone really making their point. Dum 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 dum.
Yeah.
Da 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 da. Everything is just as strong as the one before it, and you rarely get that in music. You normally get, you know, things should have a very clear shape where you know, it's either coming down or coming up. But this one, it has to be strong and insistent on every note. Can we try? Then turn. Good. Like that B flat was nice. It sort of changes color. If you do C flat. Let it, it needs to be in a haze. No, I don't mean very still and icy about this one. So not it's not that. It's kind of like, if it was the orchestra, it would be kind of like no vibrato sound.
Yeah.
You play the flute, so you know that you can get that kind of icy sound with like no vibrato.
Yeah.
That's what you need. Only it's the piano, so to capture that type of sound.
Yeah.
And then you have all these other things to worry about in the left hand too. Your left hand texture in this is so important that it's just it's in the background, and that it's super smooth and nothing ever jumps out. So your graph of your left hand should just look like, okay, the bass notes are a little bit more, so boom, and then it should be like a flat line, boom, then a flat line, boom. It should not be boom, whoops, boom, whoop, yep.
Yeah.
You know, like with some of the notes. So let's try. It's a little bit, it's really rich. Left hand down. Change the pedal really clearly. Okay, and it's gradually getting slower towards this strange measure. Keep going, crescendo, more, and then piano again. Yeah, but then for that note, the entry of that note, we kind of need a little tiny bit of time so that it doesn't seem part of this progression.
Okay.
I mean, it looks on the page like it could be a part of that progression, but it's not really. So this was good. Whenever you're kind of steering everything in a certain direction, it works really well. That whenever you're really like rallentando, and then that changes the sound of. It changes the way your hand approaches it, so it's good to steer it in these directions.
Yeah.
And then you move forward again on this one. Can we go on the beginning of this one? top part. The next time you bring out the thumb, and the bringing out the thumb gives a kind of darker sound. So it's sort of like, isn't this all very peaceful? And then the next time it could be like a little bit more lurking, like a little bit more dark. And then before you know it, one of these strange accents come in and sweep the music forward again. So it's just about so not the whole thing. You don't want to make the whole thing louder just because you're trying to be more clear in this finger. You want to balance out the texture so it's still piano, and then that it's not rich. It's not stormy. This left hand is not stormy. It's kind of icy. Okay, so there needs to be a very clear difference. Straight on here. Keep the top of the right hand. Bit more. Okay, and it's disintegrating. Soft. Forte, move forward, more, okay. He just went straight back to a repetition of the original theme. This time he keeps it going, keeps it going, keeps it going. He keeps climbing upwards. And the poco stretto, you need to like increase the movement, increase the intensity. Yum, da, 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 dum, bum, bum. And then of course eventually he brings it back down again. But that's a really extended phrase that we need to keep going with. Can we do from here? And I need to hear a clear part in the top of that octave. Ya, da, dum, bum. You don't want to hear it. Ya, bum. Keep going. It gets more and more. And then this is really expressive. Da, da, dum, ya, da, 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 dum, bum, ba, ya, da, da, dum. And then it's a little bit less. Ya, da, 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 da. And then it goes back to this whole character.